You know what they say, the sequel is always better. Or maybe they don't say that, I don't know. Here is part 2 of going through popular musicians, deciding what their biggest hit is depending on record sales, streaming numbers, YouTube views, etc., and asking the question, is the artist's top song actually any good? Like last time, we will also be giving a visual criteria of whether the song is bad, it's okay, or yes, it's good, whether or not the track is representative of the musician's discography as a whole. No, it's an outlier, kind of, and yeah, it's a true example of who they are. And finally, could you make the argument that it's one of their best? No, definitely not. Maybe middle of the pack, and yeah, it's near the upper tier. Though some recent TikTok trends have put Pink and White and Lost by Frank Ocean in a battle for his #1 slot, I'm gonna stick with Thinkin' About You, which has held the title for pretty much his whole career. We started the last video with Radiohead's Creep, and I think this is somewhat of a similar case study. Their most commercially successful work coming from their debut album, it is exponentially simpler and kind of lame compared to the all-time history of music greatness that they would go on to achieve, but on its own, it's still a good song. Better than what most musicians will make throughout their whole lives. Lush, smooth contemporary R&B pop with A+ falsettos. Sicko Mode is certified diamond, and good for Travis Scott that his gigantic mega smash is really innovative, creative, etc. For somebody that goes back and forth between pretty forgettable and one of the most ambitious artists defining the sound of this generation, this track represents his strongest pros and none of his cons. We've got the beat switch, which is genuinely ridiculous to hear on a mainstream hit, the general theme of psychedelic prog trap, and the top-notch chemistry with Drake as a shining feature. Coldplay is one of the most tragic examples of popularity getting rid of the band's quality. How did this group go from 4 genuinely good records and comparisons to one of the most important bands of all time to this absolute disaster class of a track with the Chainsmokers? Something like this isn't even that bad in terms of quality, though it is rather muddy sounding. What really gets me about this song is that it's devoid of any originality or imagination. This is the ultimate, let's get 3 chords, input bland lyrics about being in love, Mad Lib style, and you're done. Going from genuine stories like The Scientist, Clocks, Yellow, and Viva La Vida to this is rough, but that's the path that they chose. You may be surprised to learn that Drake's top song and his first #1 in his career is One Dance of all things, which both makes no sense to me and perfect sense all at the same time. Before this came out, we had the popular hits that made him, like Best I Ever Had, Forever, Marvin's Room, Headlines, Take Care, Started from the Bottom, Hold On We're Going Home, which I love by the way, Energy, Back to Back, Hotline Bling, Jumpman, and more. And I think all of those have more personality to them than this totally fine dancehall-infused R&B pop rap. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but it's an example of how confusing these biggest song titles can be. Maybe I'm alone in this, but One Dance doesn't feel like the hit of the most streamed artist of all time on Spotify, even though it follows the Drake formula to a T. There's something that doesn't quite connect with me here, and that is a pretty standard story for Drake. Skinny Love by Bon Iver is one of the most important tracks for independent music of the century. It is a deeply sad, passionate folk song that helped introduce the world to Justin Vernon. With personal, bittersweet lyrics that hit home and a voice handcrafted by angels above, this is a beautiful piece to have as your biggest hit. With that being said, the group would continue to evolve and experiment with new sounds in every subsequent release, so the representation category is tough. I think regardless of however much art pop and folktronica Bon Iver will use in their music going forward, their first mainstream hit will always be true to their spirit. JayZ's popularity is intriguing when compared to a lot of the names on these lists. People know who he is in pop culture, he's always been relevant, and he's one of the must-know players in the hip-hop game, as he is top 5 all-time, no question, but compare his record sales to Eminem, or his streaming numbers to Drake, and he's not even close. Case in point, stuff like 99 Problems, Public Service Announcement, and Can I Get A are hip-hop classics, and then collabs with Rihanna and Kanye respectively would also be huge for him, but you have to go to the kind of tacky Empire State of Mind to find a true JayZ-owned pop radio crossover smash hit. It's anthemic and everything, but this is nowhere near Hove in his prime. At this point, it's almost impossible to call pretty much any of Nirvana's catalog undervalued, but Smells Like Teen Spirit changed the very landscape of music. With lyrics as raw and visceral as the explosive instrumental, this song is yet another one of the many standouts from Nevermind. Even the more subdued tracks like Something in the Way, with its subtle orchestral touches, still maintain the same cynical yet mournful essence. So here's where measuring an artist's biggest song gets tricky. What do we do with Weezer? This isn't a trick question I really need to know. Is it Island in the Sun? Spotify says so. Billboard contends that it's Beverly Hills, which spent a whopping 43 weeks on the chart with a peak position at number 10. But we all know Buddy Holly, right? Well, I know we've all seen Buddy Holly, as it's Weezer's second most viewed video on YouTube, behind what? Say It Ain't So. So I guess there's only one real answer here. But really, this just brings us back to how the biggest song isn't always the easiest to identify. It's just not that simple. These songs are popular in their own way, and that's ultimately demonstrative of the power of the listener. Gorillaz' Feel Good Inc. is as close to a perfect song as we're gonna get, and really gets to the core of the complexity of the issue that we're addressing. The reality is, of course, no one song can fully encapsulate an artist's career because the musicians we love are multifaceted people. And Gorillaz in particular have had a discography that spans multiple genres, with features ranging from Grace Jones to Bad Bunny. And nearly every album of theirs has at least one song that I'd consider arguably the band's best. Yet here's Feel Good Inc. with its mosaic of sound, taking the listener from the hard-hitting hip-hop beat to the elaborate, layered instrumentals for the chorus. I was shocked and slightly disappointed to learn that Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 is the only hit Pink Floyd had in the US and UK. While that is one funky bass line, and I'm absolutely here for the message, a good bass line and a compelling message isn't exactly scarce in Pink Floyd's discography. This is both an iconic song and a good song, but then you have Shine On You Crazy Diamond, a cathartic meditation of music with some of the most iconic and recognizable guitar work of all time, and that's just the first half of the song. Or Comfortably Numb, an otherworldly vision that blooms with theatrics and emotion. And then there's Wish You Were Here, a song that probably every person on Earth can relate to. Robot voice, check. Flawless production, check. Endless replayability value, that's Get Lucky. Daft Punk really played to their strengths with this one, along with recruiting a music A-lister to do guest vocals on this polished, instantly influential, disco-tinged banger. My jaw dropped at the realization that we've had a decade with this song, even after living through all the resulting memes. As one of the most likable and critically acclaimed albums of the 2010s, SZA's Control brought the world to a stop when it dropped. In the year of Despacito and Shape of You, the understated, almost stripped down production of The Weeknd made way for SZA's dreamy vocals signaling the evolution of contemporary R&B. And that's exactly what made that album the huge influential success that it was, setting a precedent for the rest of SZA's career that she's more than lived up to. And even while her production has no doubt stepped up, especially with the release of SOS, The Weeknd still stands out as one of the many jewels in SZA's crown. Even though Say So has come to basically represent TikTok virality as a whole, it's still a pretty good pop song. But Doja Cat has come a long way, and I think she's outgrown this track in all the right ways. Songs like Kiss Me More does what Say So did a little bit better, and tracks like You Right shows Doja is definitely an artist with range. The same can definitely be said for Ariana Grande's Seven Rings. Musically, this isn't the worst, but to me, it represents a series of unfortunate cultural faux pas that the song definitely carries baggage from. I think something like Positions or Thank You Next are much more representative of Ari's unabashedly personal subject matter wrapped in shiny pop packaging. Beabadoobee is much less famous than basically all of the people we've talked about in these videos, and that's precisely why I thought she'd be a fascinating discussion. While she's one of the more critically acclaimed and beloved up-and-coming indie rockers of the day, most people don't know about Bia. However, they might recognize her collab with Pofu, entitled Deathbed, which prominently samples her song Coffee, and This Is My Thing, that track which went viral on TikTok, giving it hundreds of millions of streams, and ended up being used in a national Dunkin' Donuts advertisement, is such a watered-down, lifeless expression of Beabadoobee. It's cute and catchy, sure, but she is infinitely more than this. But what separates this poor representation of Bia from something like Taylor Swift's Shake It Off is that Taylor's name was gonna be out there reaching every corner of the globe regardless of the success of this one story. The same cannot exactly be said for Beabadoobee. Practically all of her catalog blows Deathbed out of the water, similarly to Taylor and Shake It Off, but as an independent musician trying to grow in the uber-competitive music landscape, I imagine that this whole topic becomes kind of irrelevant when that goofy, watered-down, lifeless song helped pay the bills for a while, and perhaps even helped pave the way and open the doors necessary to get a wonderful, musically diverse album like Beatopia into the world. While these videos have shown us that a band's biggest song is actually often pretty good, there's a silver lining even if the opposite is true too. For every tale of a musician being represented by some of their most impressive achievements, we also see instances where some of their worst music is at the top commercially, but it still brought in a few more eyes and ears to go and check out the best stuff hidden underneath. Hey, thank you for watching that video. If you want to support the channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at RenshawHS. You can buy my merch, support my Patreon, and thank you again. I'll see you soon.